Like, how do I know if I'm actually connecting with God? How do I know if I'm just not like deluded myself? I got Pete's dragging going on here. How can I know that my prayers aren't skipping off the ceiling?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd like to know what you would have to say about that. But I think one of the things I would encourage someone to do is to get to know what Jesus' voice sounds like, to get to know who God is. And probably the best way to do that, one of the best ways, is by reading about him in the Bible. So reading the Bible regularly. We start to hear the types of things he would say. He tells us to love our neighbors. He calls us to faithfulness. And so when we hear things that don't sound like that, then we can have questions about them. I also think it's really important that we get into a community of people who are also following Jesus, because me just by myself, I can kind of imagine any number of things. Is Jesus talking to me? But other people will help us. So those would be two things that I would say would help us confirm that who we are connecting with is God. But there's maybe another aspect to this, like, are we even connecting at all? Do you want to talk about that?
Okay, so my head is kind of at this, place that some of us get to, and sometimes it happens regularly. It's like, God, I need to feel you. I need to know that you're real. I need to know that my prayers aren't skipping off the ceiling at me. And I think that maybe that's a way to go, but I wouldn't want to live there. Jesus seemed to have this understanding that would go into a closet and would pray, and that the Heavenly Father would see me and would reward me for that. Not that I'm earning anything, but there's this sense of the Father sees what's done in quiet. And so my hope kind of sits with that. Like, please, Jesus, meet this need. So one of the things I do is I have a journal, and I'll write things out. And sometimes that journal's got people's names in it and people's situations in it. One of the things that I decided to do whenever years ago, 20, 30 years ago, when I started to journal again, was to be as honest as I could be. I wasn't going to start my morning off with blessed be, thou great Jehovah. Though that's great and fine, I get it. But I didn't want to write it so that someone could read it and say, what a deep man of God.
Right.
I think actually if someone who read my journal, they would be appalled at how honest it is. But that's the place that God calls us to, right? Is this honest spot. And I don't know, it's kind of like you gotta get there, stay there, and then look back on where God has met you, right? And if you do read the Psalms, and we encourage you to pray the Psalms, not half, but a bunch of them, I think it's like 70, are these heart-wrenching laments where people are putting it out there. And did anybody hear me? Like, is anybody out there? And then you look back on something like that a year later and go, oh, you were there when my grandson was born. I mean, we walked through that, right? And I'm crying on your shoulder because it looks like things are bleak. We're praying, didn't know what the outcome was. And I look back now, I go, God, you were faithful again. And so I would say keep a journal. And it doesn't always happen snap fast. Be patient. God's patient. He's got the long term. Last thoughts before we put a wrap on this?
No, I just love what you were saying there. And it reminded me that I think we were listening to a podcast recently where the speaker was saying that just even pausing at the end of the day to pray and reflect, where did I see God at work in the day, can train us to kind of recognize him in the moment. So it's like there is kind of a practice that needs to happen for us to be able to know if we're really connecting with God.
Yeah, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, just like stop before I just hit the fast forward button, which is my life. And then at the end, and there's just sort of attentive to, maybe I'll finish this way. The thought that maybe there isn't a God out there is something that most of the saints have experienced, right? Like I think about Mother Teresa, like just feels like, he's not there. C.S. Lewis, feels like the door is double bolted and all the blinds are pulled. So that happens. And God is still there.